Well, hey there. Thanks for joining me this morning. I think I'm all set here. I've got my cinnamon coffee, which I've gently and lovingly poured over and put to use. Mm, I've got tons of questions. I really didn't expect the kind of level of views that we got with the Getting Started in Voiceover Thriving in the AI World course that we had. We began on the 17th of August, and we let out a new lesson. We started with lesson one. We sent out a new lesson every other day, and I had no idea that we would get over 3,200 views so far of the videos, and I wanted to thank you for that. If you could do me a favor, just to make sure that I know you can hear me and you can see me, please drop to the comments below wherever you're seeing this on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Let me know where you're watching from. What city are you in currently? I know it's summertime. There are people that are on vacation. There are people that are traveling. They may be getting ready for a weekend's full of fun and frivolity. I know I'm looking forward to the Rams Denver game tonight, another chance for us to lose. But let me know. I'm gonna check things out. Ed Waldorf is in Mobile, Alabama. Fantastic. Mary Zajac is in Agawam, Massachusetts. One of the joys of my life is knowing how to pronounce as many different city names around the country as I possibly can. And I happened to live in Connecticut for a while. And Agawam has if I'm not mistaken, Mary, correct me if I'm wrong, but Agawam has uh, 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 an amusement park. Isn't there an amusement park in Agawam? I think there is. Anyway, that's I remember I used to work on radio in Connecticut, and we used to have commercials about whatever that place was. Maybe I'm totally wrong. I don't know. Anyway, I appreciate that. I appreciate you letting me know where you're coming in from. Today, what we're going to do is you can ask your questions. All you have to do is pop them in the chat or the comment stream below the video. Or if you're on your phone, just pop up the comments and put it in there. Anything you want to ask me about in terms of voiceover, in terms of artificial intelligence, in terms of working from home, the current strike. I was really, really hoping weeks ago when the strike started that by now I would have to shift away from the message that I've had. Listen, we're striking over one particular contract with the union, but all the rest of the work is not only available to do, but we are encouraged and required to do voiceover work and commercials and all the other things that we do as SAG-AFTRA talent. And those of you that are non-union, the message there is if you ever want to be in the union, this is one of the things that you'll have to deal with. So note that if you have a question, I want to answer your questions. But here's the thing. I tell people in the 5 lessons, if you have a question, do the same thing. Scroll down below the video, leave a question in the comments, and I'll answer it in a follow-up lesson. And so there's this sort of time delay as people watch lesson 1 and they have questions. I'm producing lesson 2 with questions that people asked before the lessons even started. And so I get around to answering the questions in lesson 3. And so there's this sort of leapfrog thing that happens. And if I answered all of the questions that people ask, and 99% of them are fantastic. Some of them are like, what's the capital of Montana? They're not really related, but that's what happens sometimes. And if I had answered every single one of the questions, by the time lesson 5 rolled around, it would be 6 hours long. So what I wanted to do was I took the time last night and this morning to go through every single question that has been posted on all of the lessons, the ones that I haven't been able to get to answer because of time or because they hadn't come in yet. There are people who haven't yet watched some of the lessons. I gathered all those together and I'm going to share them with you today. I'm going to ask them for the people who asked the questions, and I'm going to do my best to answer them. In addition, I want to answer your questions as well while we're here live, or if you're watching this on a replay. So, again, if you have questions about voiceover or about working from home or about the threat or the promise of artificial intelligence or about equipment or about the mindset or building your voiceover business or how to be a multiple threat, both an on-camera actor and a voiceover actor. That's one of the things that I kind of specialize in. Please take the time, scroll down or pop up the comments window and leave your question below. And I promise I will get to all of them today. Let me just check real quick in the, oh, we got more people telling me where they're from. Okay. This is, see, Vaishnavi Bisundiai, LinkedIn from Mauritius. Matt Lagerman from Zionsville, Indiana. Jill Hecker-Schneider from outside of New York. What are your thoughts? Matt says, what are your thoughts on Twisted Wave on a Mac? Don't like it. I prefer Audacity. And I don't want to be flippant about that answer. Twisted Wave works fine. I just base all of my training on functions that Audacity has. I've been watching soccer and now I can't get my plurals and my singulars straight. England have won the semifinals and are going on to the really? It's England has, not has. Anyway, Matt says, what are your thoughts on that? So Twisted Wave is great. It's just not what I use and not what I teach because it doesn't have some of the functions that I need for the process, the editing and mastering process. But if you want to use it, great. It's great. So that's the kind of thing we'll do. We'll answer these questions. Gretchen Frazier. Hey, Gretchen. I know Gretchen from long ago, from Lakewood, California. That's great. Thanks for popping in. Who else do we have here? Eugene from Beaumont. Eugene Dixon. Yeah, Six Flags. Riverside Park. That was it in Agawam. That's exactly right. So now it's called Six Flags New England. Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. It would have bothered me all day. All right. So put your questions, if you're watching live or if you're watching on the replay, put them in the comments below. And let's get to some of the questions that were asked by people all week long and into last week that I couldn't get to. By the way, VOheroes.com/go is where you want to go. If you haven't started watching the lessons yet, or if you're in the middle of them, you want to keep watching them currently, that link points to lesson number 5, the mindset lesson. But all of the lessons are accessible by just scrolling down a little bit below the lesson video, and you'll see all these thumbnails for lesson 1 through 5. They will be up for about a week. We're going to take them down a week from today. So if you want to get into them, you have a whole week to do it, do that. But let's get into some of the questions that people have asked throughout the week. From I think this is lesson number 2, Daniel Monk says, is it hard to learn Audacity or Adobe Audition? So the answer to some of the questions that I'm going to share with you is it depends. It depends. It depends how much sense recording audio, editing audio, etc. in general makes to you. Adobe Audition and Audacity and Twisted Wave and Pro Tools, they're all very similar. Logic, any piece of software that you want to use to record sound and edit that sound and then export that sound as a particular type of file, they're all very similar. You'll see a screen that shows you your waveforms as you record. You'll be able to highlight those waveforms and cut them out or put them together or add new ones in or adjust them. They're all pretty much the same. Some of them have different behaviors and idiosyncrasies and ways of using things. Easy to learn? I don't know. How easy was it for you to learn other things on your computer? I can tell you that most people, once they understand how the display works and how the selection tools work, you want to grab this particular piece of your work. It's easier to use than a word processor. Certainly easier to use than Excel or some of the idiosyncrasies of your mail program. They're different, but once you start working with it, you get this muscle memory where, oh, I see how that works, or I know where to go to find this. Okay, I understand. I had a conversation last night with Mr. Michael Kostroff, who I am a client of his for Audition Psych 101, and he is one of my VO Heroes pros. He's one of the members of my pro group where I teach people voiceover. And we were talking about how we were getting set up to I use a tool called StreamYard to do these lives. And we were getting set up to do one because I'm going to do one live with him tomorrow afternoon at 5 o'clock Pacific. And I was helping him get used to it. And he said, I just find Audacity so much easier to use than this. And I was a little shocked because I think that StreamYard is pretty simple in general compared to all the things that Audacity can do. But then I remembered when I teach Audacity, I remind people that Audacity is used by people who work with sound outside of the world of voiceover, musicians and podcasters and sound designers and DJs and all kinds of people, spoken word people. We use whatever sound software we use for one particular thing 99% of the time, and that's creating a mono, so one channel, mono, dry voice track. And Audacity is extraordinarily good at that, just as good as any of the other pieces of software, certainly Adobe Audition. What I don't like about Adobe Audition is either you pay for it, very expensive, first time, one time, or you pay on a subscription for it. And, I've been accused of being a cheap bastard from time to time, but I will not sacrifice quality. Audacity is free and it's awesome. It's not free, but you have to pay for the good stuff. It's just free. So there are a number of things that I prefer with Adobe Audition. Sorry, not Adobe Audition. Audacity is free and is what I prefer. There are a number of things that I prefer over all of the other pieces of software, and one of those things is the function that allows me to teach you what I call the stair-step method. And so I really love it. So, lovely. Cinnamon coffee. All right. From lesson 3, Nadine Sampson. How do I find my lane or what my voice is best at doing, and then create a demo that can capture and appeal to the right audience? So there's a couple of things to unpack here. First of all, if you're at the point where you don't know how to find your lane or are even thinking about that question, you're nowhere near the point where you need to create a demo. So you can safely tuck that other question about your demo away until it's time for you to make it. There are two really big, huge mistakes that voice talent make when they first get started. One of them is they are hell-bent to find an agent right away. I need an agent. And the other one is they're hell-bent to make a demo before they're ready to make a demo. You cannot rush those things, either one of those things, for different reasons. But the demo thing in particular is because you don't want to waste money or time creating something that maybe okay, maybe fine, maybe awesome, who knows. But if you give yourself the time to find your lane, as you put it, or at least understand a little bit more of what you're capable of in terms of voiceover, that will impact just how much better your demo will be if you just give yourself a fighting chance. Don't rush to get your demo made. I know you want to get on with it. I get that. I'm a huge fan of having a bias for action. But I also want you to understand that you need to have the basic grounding of the business, the skill set that you need. At this point, because of your question, You don't know what you don't know. So give yourself a chance to learn those things. Wait, be patient. You will find things that you'll say to yourself when you're making the demo, "Oh, I'm glad I know that. I'm glad I understand what he's saying when he says put a little Hollywood on that." What does that phrase mean? There are all kinds of phrases like that that my clients and students learn as they go along that makes it easier and better for them to create very competitive, very successful demos. Don't rush that. When you get to that place, there won't be an issue of how do I appeal to the right audience. The issue will be how do I show what I'm capable of doing, period. And then letting the audience find you. There's a big difference. We often tend to think, oh, I need to satisfy somebody else's needs. I need to figure out what they want. Casting is one of those uh, organizations that people spend an awful lot of time trying to figure out what they want needlessly. You can't figure out what they want. They don't often know what they want, but you know what you can do. And so if you do, you have much fewer moments of, gosh, I wonder what I should do here. Just be you. Just be you, boo. So I'm not sure that I answered the question in the way that you expected, but I feel like one of my superpowers is making sure that people are asking the right question, not just the question that they thought they needed the answer to. And in this case, you don't need to worry about either one of these things right now. Just dip your toe in the water, get used to it, get going. Do the things that make you happy, and be surprised by some of the lanes that you didn't even know you'd be in. You didn't even know you'd be trying some of those things. So, Nadine, I appreciate that very much. If you have a question, put it in the comments below. We're going to check on some of those in just a moment. And also, if you want to share this, if you want to hit the share button and let people know, your friends, your colleagues, your peers, that this video is going on, we'll be here at least for an hour or so. And we'll be answering questions about voiceover and working from home in a voiceover studio that you've built yourself. You can ask questions about that, about the gear, about the business, about the strike, what's happening there. And we will answer your questions. And if you want to see the free lessons, I think it's over 6 hours of training called Getting Started in Voiceover, Getting Started in VO, Thriving in the AI World, just go to voheroes.com/go, and you'll find all the lessons sitting there. Let's see who's next. Oh, that's Nadine. Okay. Eddie Seals, challenge, getting restarted. I began a VO career in the 90s. Life and obligation put it on pause for far too long. You know what? Nobody's keeping score for you. Nobody's sitting there in the casting community going, oh, yeah, Eddie. No. He started in the 90s and then he kind of stopped. So we don't need to pay attention. If I forget that, just treat it as though you're beginning fresh. Now, you have an advantage because many of the skills that you learned in the 90s are applicable today. Some of the tech skills might need to be updated. There's new tools that people are using to do recording from home and also recording in studio. But the mics are kind of the same. In fact, they are the same. There are new ones, and there's ones that I recommend that weren't around in the 90s, but they're cheaper and they're just as awesome as you'd expect them to be. But you've got an advantage. You've got a leg up. You probably have a pretty good idea of what makes you comfortable, where you stretch yourself in terms of your talent. I would just say get going. Treat it as though, in terms of the getting started part, getting restarted part, just treat it as though you never stopped. You're just picking up where you left off. This is a story that I hear a lot, especially from women who decided they wanted to make some money in a career or to raise a family along with their partners. They decided they wanted to go find themselves. I have male clients and students who did the same thing. They decided, I need to make money. This isn't a definite thing for me. I need to go be a salesperson or a customer service rep or an attorney or a doctor, and now I want to get into this now. Or they had a whole career and they're retiring and they want to do it as they're an older person. So I wouldn't worry about wearing the badge of, I quit for a while and now I'm back. First of all, just to be completely blunt about it, nobody cares. No casting director is sitting there going, well, why did you leave in the 90s? Like, it's not like when you go in for a normal job, a muggle's job, and they look at your resume and they go, there's a gap here for about 8 years. What was going on there? Nobody cares. Nobody cares. So you don't even have to worry about that. I just say, jump in. The water's fine. We love it. You'll love it. You'll love to get back to it. Please don't let that be any sort of limiting belief about, oh, I tried and then I stopped and now I'm starting again. You're just starting again. How's that? Does that make sense? That's cool. All right, I'm going to go over and I'm going to check the comments in just a second here. Part of the thing that happened during the pandemic and being home even more than I normally was, because I remember telling people during the pandemic, I'm a voice talent. I'm an actor. I've been socially distanced for decades. I've been sheltering in place since like the 80s. So this is nothing new for me. But I started to acquire some skills that I didn't have before. One of them is pour over coffee. Man, I'm just a nut for it. All right, let's take a look at the comments. Let's see what we've got here. I'm going to go back up here. I've been working innovative artist, Gretchen Fraser. Okay, I found it. All right. Tony King, and I'm reading these cold, so let me know now. Tony King, I've been working with innovative artists for about 7 months now. I've booked 3 gigs so far, but I want to nail more auditions. What are some of the best ways to continue building your VO craft? I think it's like any other part of acting. You just got to do more and more and more of it and find things about your voice and about your ability. By the way, congratulations. 3 gigs booked in 7 months. There are people who haven't booked 3 gigs in a decade. So good on you. And Innovative Artists is good, is smart to have you, because if you're doing that for them, with them, this is great. Please don't ever let anything other than that enter your mind. You're being rewarded. Now, there are people who haven't booked in a year, in months, in years. They are no less capable of doing the work. They just haven't been presented with opportunities where the production partner finds them the best solution. It's not like they failed. It's not like they were rejected. It's just they went with someone else, period. End of report. So these numbers, while interesting, are absolutely not important. The fact that you've booked anything is great. The fact that you've booked 3 things is fantastic. I don't think you need to worry so much about how to build your VO craft. You're at a point in your journey, Tony, where you are working. You may start working more often. You may start working less often. Who knows? But we tend to have this this maximizer situation where it's like, how do I do more of this? How do I do better, bigger, bolder? I would take a moment in a period of thoughtful gratitude and say, wow, this is great, and celebrate that. Don't fail to celebrate that. It's really important. And as you do your work efficiently. You're obviously sending your auditions in. You're not, overthinking things. I wouldn't think. I don't know for sure, but that's great. Maybe save those things and go over them again. Try different approaches to them. Do not fall into the trap of, oh, I wish I'd done that in the audition. Don't do that. But you can use those scripts that you've been getting, the sides that you've been getting, the auditions that you've been getting, to play with things. Make it part of your office hours every morning to play with an audition and see what else you could do with it. There may be something in the breakdown where it's like, pleasant, happy, helpful, change those words to, snarky, sarcastic, bitchy, and see what happens. One of the things that I love doing in my workouts, when I have our VO Heroes Pro program has monthly live workouts. And my students and clients will bring clips to the workouts. They'll do them. I'll give them feedback on them. They'll do them again if they need to. Sometimes they just nail it. First time out. And I'll get this wild hair while I go, okay, let's play with this for a little bit. Let's change the attitude of the person talking from helpful to dismissive, angry, know-it-all sister-in-law. Who knows? Just for fun. And that stretches that elastic creative muscle. So it's one of those things that you might want to do. Michael Ed says Michael just finished a video demo of his comedy work. It's very enjoyable. Okay, great. I don't know what Michael you're referring to, but okay. Mary Elizabeth Boutte says, what do we look for in a producer when the time comes for a demo? Oh, what a great question. So first of all, I'm speaking from the perspective of having been a demo producer now for about 40 years, producing my own demos, producing demos for other people. I've produced well over 1,000 different demos. There are tons of people that work in the business that do it. The good news is almost all of them are spectacular. So the best thing to do is to just listen to their demo samples. If you go to voheroes.com/demos and listen to our demo samples, I'm very proud of what we've been able to do. And you can get a lot of information just from what their past work sounds like. Be sure to listen the way a casting person would listen, not the way a sound engineer or producer would listen. Oh, that's a great use of sound effects. Listen for the voice. Listen to how they highlight and spotlight the voice involved. Is that voice being shown in its best light? Prices is also something. The average demo will cost you a little over $3,000 in today's marketplace. We do a survey every year, but those are the kinds of things that you want to look for. Great production, and also how are they showcasing the voice that you're listening to. Matt's back. Matt Lagerman says, what are your thoughts on Voicebank and people undercutting professional voiceovers? I think if you're talking about Voicebank, the site that used to be where all the cool jobs were, it doesn't exist anymore. I'm sad about Voicebank. Voices.com bought them and then destroyed them and overlaid this process that is disgusting. So those are my thoughts about Voicebank. I wish it was still around. I'm waiting for somebody to replace it. People undercutting professional voiceovers. That's why I never recommend voices.com ever, and never will. So I think that's pretty straightforward. Let's see here. Jill Hecker Schneider, and then we'll get back to the ones that have been sent in. Quick question. Will this session be online once the live is over? I'm trying to watch live, but my dog has made it clear he's not waiting an hour. So in general, Jill, every live event that you watch on social media, whether it's Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, they're always automatically recorded and played back. There's no reason to go live online if that's not the case. And it's built into all of the channels and their procedures. So it'll be here waiting for you. But come back when you're done walking your dog. All right. Tana says mugged. LOL. I don't know what that is. I wish I knew what you were laughing at. Sherry. Oh, Michael Kostroff. Got it. Okay. I just saw Ed's comment. Yeah, he did just put up his comedy reel, right? It's Sherry Hewitt. I needed to hear this message about coming back to VO. This just might be my sign to jump back in, ? Why not? Please. This is great. There are so many things happening right now right now, Saturday morning, Pacific time, in 2023, so many things happening that make voiceover a very attractive thing to jump back into, to jump into for the first time. We've spent a lot of time in the 5 lessons over the last week and a half or so talking about artificial intelligence and synthetic voices. I hope that for those of you who thought it was going to be another beatdown on AI, that, yeah, that was part of it. There's some threats from AI coming. But I also hope that I shared with you information that maybe, whoops, maybe I have to turn Siri off. Apparently Siri thought I said something to her. Actually, let me do this. I'm going to turn my phone off completely because apparently Siri is listening. And right when I was talking about artificial intelligence, bum, bum, bum. Okay, so there are some real benefits and promises and, good things that will come along because of deeper artificial intelligence technology. And if right now you're thinking to yourself, F you, David, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I kind of do. I kind of do. I kind of do know what I'm talking about. I've been working in technology since the early 80s, along with entertainment. They've been the two things that have kind of weaved their way through my life. And I kind of feel like I'm one of the people that even understands how large language models teach themselves, how they explore neural networks, how translators are used, how chains are created, why there's so much computing power necessary for all this. But I certainly understand the fear that people have about jumping into or jumping back into an area that there's been a very loud hue and cry about the threat of synthetic voices replacing voice talent. It's going to happen, as we said in lesson 1, within 10 minutes of lesson 1. I said, it's not going to happen, it's happening. It's here, it's happening. But the funny thing is, it's not nearly as explosive and invasive as people are concerned or were concerned that it would be. In fact, there was an article in Variety just a week or two ago. Wait, I thought AI was coming for my job. It didn't? And the answer may be, yeah, not yet, but possibly. But as I said, I've been dealing with the competition of artificial intelligence and synthetic voices since the 80s in one particular category of voice work, and that's IVR. There have been synthetic voices in IVR since the 80s. And yet, it is my most profitable category of work. I mean, millions of dollars I've made in IVR, even though the producers all had the opportunity and the option of using synthetic voices, because humans will always be in demand, period. They will, until our AI overlords become sentient, and then we're all screwed. No, that's not true. Tony King, wonderful advice. The Muggles reference. I see. Okay. Excuse me. Time for some coffee. Thank you, Tony. And so congratulations on Innovative Artists, because they're great. All right. Again, if you have questions about voiceover, work from home, artificial intelligence, pop them in the comments below. Please share this with your followers right now. Let them know that this is available. And we're going to go back to some of the questions that were posted during the release of the lessons, but that I couldn't get to. Okay, we did Eddie. Hang on. Okay, Diane says, how do you deal with unwanted mouth sounds? So when you're working, you like just then, when you heard that little click, I don't know if you heard that little click. I opened my mouth, my tongue separated from my upper palate, separated, and it popped a little bit. First of all, two things. One of them may be a habit that you need to break, and that's a lip smack, as an example. So you're talking, you're very happy with how you've done, and then you do a lip smack. It happens all the time in normal everyday speech. But when you're doing voiceover, you have to learn to completely stop doing that. The other thing that may be happening is you may have natural mouth sounds. Your lips separate, your tongue separates from your upper palate, it pops up off the floor of your mouth, the saliva glands engage and make noise. But I have had, I'm going to say hundreds of clients complain to me that they have excessive mouth noise. And my first response is, great. Let's work on that. Record something for me and let me hear what you're talking about and point out where you hear this happening. And I will get recordings that have absolutely no mouth noise on them whatsoever. Not because they were recording with a noise gate on or with expansion on or because they avoided mouth noise for that. They hear it in their head and they are their own worst enemies. Like breathing, some examples of mouth noise are completely natural, not overly intrusive. You know, if you've got loose dentures, well, then you've got a problem. But for the most part, what I've heard has not been an issue. Now, have there been times when I've heard people that have egregious mouth noise? Sure. There are people who have dry mouth, there are people who have overly wet mouths. And note that everybody who has a solution only has a solution for them. Our bodies have our own individual biologies, and what works for one person may or may not work for another person. You hear all the time, oh, drink a lot of water, or oh, green apples, very, very good, or apple cider vinegar, or a million different things. I use something called Lohan Quo when I have congestion or when I have, but it works for me. It's a Chinese, it looks kind of like those old little cubes, those bouillon cubes that you would drop into hot water, or your grandmother would drop into hot water when she wanted a full meal. Anyway, it's kind of a sweet Chinese tea. You can get it at a Chinese apothecary, but that's what works for me. I don't know what works for you. There are all these things that you can try and your body will respond in one way or another. But the overarching advice that I'm giving you, Diane, is please get a second opinion about how bad or how egregious your mouth noise is, because it may not be as bad as you think. And we tend to really be hard on ourselves when we listen back to our work, because in some cases we've never heard ourselves recorded, especially when we're first getting started. It can be really, really interesting to watch people react to themselves. Deborah Miller, how do I get experienced and the correct equipment? So you get experienced by doing the work, period. Whether it's schoolwork, training work in the beginning, whether it's actual auditions that you try to do and you don't do very well at them, but you learn from them. The correct equipment, I don't know that the phrase correct equipment is a phrase that has a specific meaning. I have a set of equipment that I not only recommend to my students, but when they come and study with me in the VO Heroes Pro program, they get the equipment as part of their subscription. So, for example, tomorrow I'm going to open registration for VO Heroes Pro. And as people sign up for the new cohort this fall, the new fall class, I will be sending them the microphone that I use, the earbuds that I use, the desktop mic stand that I use. And I'm going to do that because I find the equipment that I recommend and that I use every day to be spectacular, to be easily trainable, to be able to work in various environments. And I'm able to afford to give it to them as part of the program. And so I don't think correct equipment is something that you need to worry so much about, because there are plenty of recommendations from people like me and others who want to talk about equipment. What I would say is, please don't overpay for equipment that may be too good. Here's what I mean by that. There are microphones that are glorious, lovely. I have two of them on the shelf. I always point up to them because they just sit there. My Neumann U87, which is about $3,800 when I bought it, or when CBS bought it for me, and my Sennheiser MKH 416 was about $1,200 when I got it. Both of those are glorious microphones. They're recommended all the time. And in a room like this, they would be a disaster. And perhaps in a room like you have, they would be a disaster because they pick up everything. They are overly sensitive for the environment that you might find yourself in. So the correct equipment depends on what space you're working in. This is a relatively quiet space, my video studio, but it's not voiceovers quiet. I go into my studio bricks, or I go into my second studio that isn't a studio bricks to do my work because it's quiet enough to do voiceover work. I could use the Neumann in there. I did for years, but I like the AT2020 USB Plus. I use it every day. I love it. For me, it's the correct equipment. But that's for me and for my clients. You may move on to something else at some point, and it might be correct for you then. So I wish I had a better definitive answer. I love definitive answers, but it depends. That's the answer to that question. Brian Coffey, challenge, directing myself and getting good sound and a quiet space. Look at that. So Brian, directing yourself is a huge challenge for almost everyone who is put in the position that we've all been put in, where we're not in a studio. There's nobody on the other side of a pane or two of glass, leaning into an intercom and saying, yeah, could you put a little bit more energy into that? Thank you. Nobody's doing that. We have to hear those moments and adjust those moments ourselves. We have to be our own self-directors. In the VO Heroes Pro curriculum that I teach, about a little less than 40 classes, one of them is called The Art of Self-Direction. And it speaks directly to this. It's a big enough subject that it speaks directly to this. And it walks you through the ways to observe, almost like a disinterested third party or somebody on the other side of a pane of glass, what you've done when you record things, listening to what you've done, adjusting what you've done, making sure that you're serving the story in a way that also reflects your brand, your lane, as one of the earlier questioners said. And doing so in a way where what choices you make don't stick out like a sore thumb as not being of service to the story. So it's a great question. It's a big subject, and it starts with being able to recognize what worked, what didn't, and why. The age-old post-scene acting reflection that I learned when I started going to Howard Fine as an acting class here in Los Angeles. You do a scene, and then you go, okay, what worked, what didn't, and why? And when you're first learning how to do voiceover, or when you're getting better at doing voiceover, you'll record. This is what we do every month in our workouts. You'll record. We'll take a look at what worked, what didn't work, and why it either worked or it didn't work. And you start to acquire this skill of self-direction. And so I don't know what your challenges are in that space, but you're certainly not alone. So it depends where you are and what it is. It's different for everybody. The challenge of getting good sound in a quiet space, that's more of a math problem. Getting good sound is making sure that you have great equipment. And again, I believe that the AT2020 USB Plus, very inexpensive. almost too inexpensive because it's hard to justify how good that mic is based on the current price of the mic. um, but getting a quiet space is being a detective. Okay, I hear a noise. What's causing that noise? Is it a hum from an incandescent light? Is it the sound from a ballast of a fluorescent light? Is it the grinding noise of an external hard drive? Is it the fan on my computer? Is it the refrigerator on the other side of the wall in the space that I'm working at? Is it the dogs outside? Is it the yard workers? Is it the leaf blowers they're using, the lawnmower that they're pushing? Is it traffic from a distance? Is it a siren? All of these things need to be identified and dealt with, or at least accepted and worked around. So it's more of certainly it's on an individual basis, but it's more of a math problem than the whole idea of self-direction, which varies from script to script and performance to performance. So I think that's the best I can do with that question. I hope you find that helpful. It's one of the reasons that I started teaching voiceover to begin with, because I saw people just really struggling with finding out how to make their space quiet. And in lesson 4 of the free lessons that are still available, we talked about creating a quiet space and the difference between sound proofing and sound dampening. That's something that people often have an issue understanding. Um, if you have questions, please put them in the comments below. I'm going to pop back over to the comments and see what we have here. LinkedIn user came here late. Okay, great. Tanis Clark. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Is it Tanis? Tanish? I find that working in AI, the clients approaching, is that what it says? In working in AI? The clients approaching for VA work are asking extremely low pay. Are you finding that as well? Main complaint for voicing for AI. Oh, voicing for AI. Okay, great. Hey, Jen Selke, the most connected person in the universe out of Atlanta, listening in from the car. Fantastic. Main complaint on voicing for AI. So you're already doing voice work for artificial intelligence. Okay. Yeah, there are a lot of people thinking that because AI is going to be inexpensive to charge for, that the voices that will provide the training for AI should also be inexpensive. No, no. Let me just giggle into the no. No, no. And in fact, I am so proud of our union. I can't talk about something that I was involved in a meeting on the other day about how they are developing the basic contract concepts and language for how we are going to be compensated both initially and ongoing for our work in creating the training for AI voice models. I almost was brought to tears in the meeting with how really on top of things the union is on this matter and how it's going to spill out into the rest of the world. So if you're being offered low money, the answer is no. Now you can be nice about it when and they won't see that you're giggling into the no when you just reply back, "I'm afraid I'll have to pass this time." But don't settle for that. If they can't get people to do the training for what they feel is reasonable money, they'll have to raise the rates. So let's do that. How about that? Yeah, let's do that. All right. Back to the banners. Back to the banners, meaning people that had posted questions that I couldn't get to in the sessions or the lessons this past week and a half or so. And if you have a question and you're watching this live or you're watching the replay, excuse me, just put them in the comments below the video as you're watching today. So Nora Kalkman says, I don't know where to find jobs. So a couple of different places to find jobs, casting sites like Voice123 and Badalgo and Voquent, decidedly not some of the other ones, and via agents and via your own experience and customers that you've served in the past, via referrals, via sites, and being an entrepreneur where you wouldn't even think in this particular way unless you were attuned to finding work. Let me give you an example. IVR work, phone recording work. I was put on hold at a sandwich shop at one point as I was putting my order in, and I thought they'd hung up on me because there was nothing on hold. There was no music, there was no announcements. And when I got to the sandwich shop to pick up my sandwiches, I said, "Hey, do you have anything on hold?" "Oh yeah, it's been on my list for a long time. I can help you with that." I will find books mentioned on television, mentioned in news articles, that I find interest in. I tend to listen to books because I'm not only an audiobook narrator, but I'm also an audiobook fan. I'm a listener. And when I don't find that there is an audiobook version of a book, there are times when I will contact the author and say, "Is there a reason there's no audiobook for this? Because there should be," and potentially work into a relationship with them. If you go look up on Audible at your convenience a book titled The Undersea Network, it's about all of the cables that connect all of the continents to provide traffic on the internet. That was a book that I narrated because I read about it in the New York Times, and I contacted the author, who was a professor at NYU, and she said, "Who would want to hear my book as an audiobook?" And I'm like, "That's why I'm calling, because I wanted to hear it as an audiobook." And I ended up being her narrator. It is, in many ways, remembering that we are entrepreneurs. We should have our ear to the ground listening for opportunities, not just from our agents, which are the obvious choices. And by the way, you can have more than one agent in the world of voiceover. It's not only looked upon favorably, it's almost a requirement, one in different cities. But also the casting sites, and also this notion of listening for opportunities, listening actively for opportunities. Um, Again, we talk about this in the marketing courses in VO Heroes Pro, and we do so from a perspective of making sure that people are prepared as entrepreneurs, as performer entrepreneurs, properly. So maybe now you do know how to find some jobs. You got lots of different ways to do it. Rosemary Dan, how much memory should each external hard drive have? So let me give you a little backstory on this. This is probably posted lesson 4. So we talk about 4 major tent poles, 4 major keys to having a successful voiceover career. Certainly the performance, the art of voiceover, then the commerce of voiceover, building your business so that it's a business, not a hobby. The technology, the science of voiceover, which is where this was from, and the mindset. The science of voiceover, we talk about all the gear, all of the software, the hardware, the stuff you might connect to your computer to make your voiceover life spectacular, shaboom, shaboom. One of those things is protecting your work. And we talk about setting up external hard drives, both for storage and for backup. And so I believe Rosemary means not memory, but capacity. And so how much capacity should each external hard drive have? If you're talking about your storage drive, which is the external drive that is connected to your computer permanently, and where the data as you record on your microphone gets recorded on, as opposed to the internal hard drive of your computer where the stuff is happening, where apps are executing, we tell you to record your data on a separate drive so that the two aren't competing. That drive, currently, I have a 4 terabyte drive, 4 terabyte drive for the storage drive. Now, we tell you to get 1 or more backup drives as well. They happen to be the same model, but not the same storage capacity. For my backup drives, I have 4 of them that I rotate in and out of my studio. And each one of those is 5 terabytes. And those are the maximum, storage capacities on portable drives currently. Um, so that's what I would recommend. 4 terabytes for your storage drive and 5 terabytes for the backup drive, because you're going to back up the storage drive as well as the internal drive on your computer. So that's what I recommend there. I don't see any other questions in the comment stream just yet, but if you have questions, please scroll down and ask them. Give us your comments as to what you're thinking here. And share this, by the way, if you would. If you want to give a like or a love or a hand clap or whatever you want to do, feel free to do that. I'll take it. Rob Resnick, which of these is most important? And by the way, when I read this question, I'm like, Rob's a very complete guy. Which of these is most important when auditioning, as I recall from the question? Some of these I had to shorten because they were huge. Volume levels, clean edits, finding your best read, the submission notes that you add when you submit your audition, or getting rid of reverb in my booth. Okay, so the most important thing here, that's kind of hard to read. I mean, volume levels and getting rid of reverb in your booth, that is a one-time solution. You should be able to set your volume level in a way that works, period. For example, and it depends on the mic you're using, it depends on the interface you're using, it depends on the software that you're using. But once you do get that level set, boom, leave it alone. Adjust it only on those rare occasions when you have to, when you're shouting, or when you're unable to get close enough to the mic to whisper, and you really need to, scoot your volume input level up a little bit. Or if you're talking about volume levels in your finished product, it should always be peaking at -3. Your volume levels when you're recording should be peaking between -12 and -6. If you don't know what these numbers are, it's okay. You'll learn them as you do them, and it will become second nature to you. Clean edits, again, they should never be dirty. Your edits should always be extraordinarily precise. And it's so important that you get that right. I was lucky because in the 70s and 80s, I learned how to edit on reel-to-reel decks with razor blades and tape. And you really had to understand the way your language works when it's laid down as a recording, and how those waveforms and how that sound can rise up out of silence. If you're saying a fricative, like an F sound. So if you say, that sound starts from 0 and moves its way up on a kind of a ramp. Same with S sounds. So, right? And finding the beginning of that S is important. Hard vowels, dentals, plosives, B's, P's, D's, T's, they are hard vowels, like at the beginning of the word and. That starts at full volume right from the get-go, and they're very easy edits to find, but you have to find those and make those edits as clean as possible. Again, that is a figure it out, solve it, and be done with it. The best read, it depends. I think that's extraordinarily important. But I also think it's extraordinarily important that you have confidence in yourself, and that you build that confidence, that you don't have to do 20 takes and then kind of Frankenstein together the second sentence from take 14 with the first word or two of take 18. And I love that third sentence of take 3. If you're doing that, please, for the love of all that is holy, stop and quit being so hard on yourself. When I audition, I rarely audition with more than 2 or 3 takes. And usually the second and third take is because I heard something as I was performing, like, oh, I got something else I want to try. But I have a great deal of confidence when I'm starting my first take. And this is part of the earlier question about self-direction, that I have done my detective work on the sides, on the script. And I have a really good idea of how David's brand is going to perform this. And it may not be the way the casting director originally envisioned it, or the producer originally envisioned it. I've had the joy of having somebody go, yeah, we didn't hear what you brought to this when we were even writing it, but it was great. Some of you may know me from a show called Heroes. And that was the note that I got in the audition when I auditioned for Eric Doyle, the puppet master. They're like, okay, I love what you're doing. This is not what we had envisioned, but please pull yourself closer to the camera so we can get the facial expressions. We do exactly what you did, but just get closer to the camera. When you hear things like that, that's a sign that you did your work. And when you have the ability to do 2 or 3 takes on an audition, that's a sign that you've done your work. And so the best read should be pretty self-evident, but there are times when things can be a little bit obfuscated, a little bit confusing. Why do they want me to do it this way? There may be something in the breakdown that is sticking out like a sore thumb. It's like, angry? Really angry? All right. Well, why is he angry? Is he mock angry? Is he really angry? Submission notes. Here, let me give you some advice on submission notes. If anything, be brief. You could even leave it blank and it'd be fine. Nobody is booking you based on your submission notes. And there's no need for you to give your life story or to let them know how comfortable you are with the content. Oh, I'm very much a techie guy, so I understand this content really well. Here's what I do in my submission notes. Thanks for listening. Period. Got no reason to put anything else in there. My resume is very clear. My demo portfolio is very evident. My experience, people get. My bio is in there. It's very short. I basically say I'm a creepy evil villain. Get over it. I think people, because there's a submission notes box, and we as humans don't like vacuums, we don't like absences of things. Something should go in there. There should be something there. There's a space for it. Let's put something in there. You don't have to do that. You can just be like, leave it blank, or just say, hey, thanks for listening, period. Not, I'm available, I'm going on vacation, so if you want me, you better book me now. There's all kinds of things that people put in there that they think make a difference. They don't. I'm sorry. They just don't. And I'm not talking about this because it doesn't make a difference for me. I talk about this because I've been on the other side. I have cast projects before, and I have watched how people submit and how little difference what their notes make. I want to hear what they did. I don't care what they're writing. Unless there's like, I've got a terrible cold and I can't do this. Please understand that. I wouldn't audition at all then if that was the case. Getting rid of reverb in the booth, again, back with volume levels. Getting rid of reverb in your booth should be something that you do immediately. There shouldn't be any reverb in your booth. You should walk into your booth and you should hear in your ears a very different version of your voice when you speak out loud, a version that is dead. So if you have to put up foam for sound dampening to stop the reverb, or if you want to put up moving blankets or towels or carpet, all of those things put together, you want to do that and do it now and get that done. That's not even on the list of things that are most important. They're essential. So, but what a great question. Thank you, Rob. That was really great. Let me go over here to comments, see if that's a question. Lou Hobson's just listening in. Hey, Lou, out there in Studio City. Thank you so much. All right. Let's go to Lori Winogrand. Lori says, how do I create a quality VO booth on a shoestring in a small space? It depends on where you're trying to create that space. Is it interior to the house? Does it have an external wall to it? Is it next to a room that has loud appliances, or where kids play, or where dogs bark? Does it have a window? These are all things that if you watch lesson 4 of the, this came from lesson 2. So you hadn't even seen lesson 4 yet, but in lesson 4 of Getting Started in VO, Thriving in the AI World, which you can get to by going to voheroes.com/go. Isn't this great? Just click. We talk about the best places in your home to position your recording space. And usually recording spaces are small, and they should be small. You don't want a large recording space. You're not recording 5 members of a band all at once. You're just recording you. And having a small space is actually contributory to a good recording. You don't want a big, huge room. That may be one of the reasons why Rob has got some reverb. And you also want to make sure that the space has soft surfaces, irregular surfaces, and that can be achieved with blankets, with towels. You do want to make sure that you have a way of keeping it cool in there, at least in between your recordings. I use an evaporative cooler in one of my spaces in the dead of summer. Haven't used it in a while, but it tends to work really well. And a lot of this is on a shoestring. You're not, I mean, if you want to get a huge booth, a Studio Bricks, I've got a Studio Bricks One Plus that costs, I think the final tally was a little close to $14,000. Because I got some, it's a little bit larger than some that have been sold that are tiny. It's got some amenities to it that I really wanted, and and I bought it towards the beginning of the part of the pandemic when we knew things were going to be bad. And I'm like, okay, in addition, the building next door to where I live, they were going to be undergoing renovations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have gotten it at all. I would have just stuck with the one that I used for years and years and years when I was doing my radio show. So um, you can do it on a shoestring, but again, it's one of those things where it depends on what your current situation is, where you're trying to locate this space, what's already in there. If you're going into a walk-in closet, don't make the mistake of removing the clothes from the closet. Just kind of spread the clothes open so you can put a little table in there or a little desk in there. The clothes help. So again, it depends, and it's one of those things that we explore. The progress of the classes in VO Heroes Pro is very specific for a very specific reason. We start with your recording space, the gear, your computer, getting everything set up technologically so that you can use it all throughout the rest of the course. We also start with the most important and lowest hanging fruit that I discussed in the first lesson early on in the curriculum so that you can rely on those skills as you learn other categories of work. So we have it in a very specific way. And getting your space right is really important. You don't want to be fighting that all the way through learning other things about your voiceover career. So great question. And again, it depends on what's going on. I'm going to check on the comments real quick. What does it say? Simon says, a small space will always sound like a small boxy space. A larger controlled acoustic space will sound much more open and natural. No, sorry, Simon, I disagree. Especially for voiceover. Because we use close play mics, the sound of your space affects it to a degree, but this notion of a large natural space for voiceover is misdirected. You might want to use that for singing, but singing is so processed that that too is kind of a misnomer as well. A small space works because a large space can have reverb. It can have just a slight bit of echo if you have hard surfaces. Part of my training is as an acoustician. I've designed studios before, and I'm not being aggressive in my argument with you, but I would be very careful about taking that as gospel. It won't always sound like a small boxy space, especially if you have soft and irregular surfaces around you. We play the mics very close, much closer than you might in, say, an ADR situation, a looping situation. But the generality of this will always sound this way, this is better, I can't agree with you there. I'm sorry, Simon. That's not part of. And if that makes you just like upset and everything, I apologize, but I disagree. All right, so let's see what other questions we have here. Daniel Monk says, "How did you gain confidence and not being afraid to fail?" What a great question. What a great question. Confidence comes from realizing you've achieved even a little bit of success and that you can recreate it. You gain confidence over time. You gain confidence with iteration. You gain confidence when you do something and then you can reproduce that. You do it again. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. That's not a struggle. Fine. All right. And not being afraid to fail, that's a decision. That's an instant decision. And it comes from experience, it comes from confidence. But I want you to fail. What? No, I do. I want to fail because you learn not only from the successes that you have, what to do, but you also learn when you break something or you miss or you don't achieve what you wanted to achieve. You fail. You learn what doesn't work or what didn't work. And then you go and investigate what you could have done differently, what you could have done. Listen, the world is not going to come to an end if you make a mistake doing voiceover, if you don't do a good job with a take, or if you you overdrive your signal and you record poorly, go back and do it again. Fail, fail forward, meaning you fail, but you don't just sit there and beat yourself up about the failure. You actually learn from the failure. As I said in the lessons in the course, you I have a definition for success. And that definition is do more of what works and less of what doesn't. And you can't help but be successful. Now, the key is knowing what works and what doesn't. And in many cases, you can tell almost immediately, "Oh, yeah, that was a pretty good take. I liked that." Especially if you're really hard on yourself, right? Or, "Oh, the waveforms were perfect between -12 and -6. That's awesome, dB. That's great. That worked." Or, "Oh my God, the waveforms are crashing, or they're just barely off the zero line. I'm recording way too low. Why is that? Wow, how come my input level isn't where it should be? What am I missing here? What didn't I see? What's happening?" So, what I want you to do is seek out those moments where you don't know what to do, and if you fail, count that as awesome, because you now have a data point that you didn't have before. And that data point is that didn't work. I wonder why. Seek help, seek support, maybe go back over the instructions that you were following and see if you missed something. But not being afraid to fail is an instant decision that I urge if you're watching this and you are afraid to fail. Take a moment, sit yourself down and have a conversation with yourself and say, it's okay. This is not other situations in life where failure could be painful or deadly. If you're driving a car and you see that light turning red and you fail because you ran that red light, that's a whole different thing. But voiceover, nah, learn from it. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't want to fail like all the time, but let it just be what it is, a moment of learning. Just a suggestion. Let's see, back in the comments, Jill Schneider, do you recommend taking anything you can get on ACX just to get more experience? A lot of the books there seem very sloppy and slapped together. I recorded one that had typos and grammar mistakes. Well, there's a couple of questions in there that I want to kind of unpack. I recorded one that had typos and grammar mistakes. Every book that I've ever recorded has typos and grammar mistakes. How many is the question? If there were lots, like every sentence was wrong, that's one thing. But almost every book that I've recorded has had something that a human proofreader did not catch. So don't worry about that. If they're just badly written, then I wouldn't do those books. But I do want to talk about this question because it's a very interesting question. Let me put this up here so people can see it. We have a number of different currencies that we enjoy receiving as we are professional performers. One of those currencies, obviously, is money. We'll get paid to do what we do, either one time in the case of audiobooks that are per finished hour, or uh, on a royalty share basis where we get paid as the book sells. So money is one thing. One of the other big currencies is exposure, where we do something and it becomes part of our portfolio of demos, our portfolio of examples. So people can listen to this. So we have that exposure. And that's valuable. You see bands doing this all the time. They'll play gigs that, just get them in front of an audience. But there's a third bit of currency that we enjoy and that we get, and that's experience. So it's not just the exposure. So for that band, maybe there's somebody from a record label. God, the 80s are calling for my strategy and tactics set. Or there's a bass player that would be really great that might be listening to them. But the experience, when you do an entire book on ACX, you're getting a lot of muscle memory in doing the recordings, the editing, the mastering, the performance of the work as you're doing the work. You're also getting experience working with a rights holder or a publisher or a platform. You're getting all kinds of systemic experience that has nothing to do with the money. It has to do with being confident and really good at doing the actual work. So I would say look for titles that, aren't horrible in terms of writing, but to get the experience that you need. Now, if I know you, from what I've read, you've posted a number of things, and if I recall correctly, you've done more than a few audiobooks already, so you may not need to enhance your experience. However, perhaps those projects have not been very fun for you or happy or satisfying. And maybe a change is in order in terms of how you handle the project work, how you handle the production work, everything but the performance. So maybe that's the case. And in that case, you might want to consider it. So let me just see. We go back. Daniel, confidence. We did that one. Let me do this. I'm going to take a quick sip. We'll see where we are. Mhm. All right. Carrie Drake says, I am in North America. She means I'm in North America, but have a British accent. I am still learning a general American accent. Should I stick with my natural accent or try to mask it? So this falls into a really, like, I feel strongly about what I'm about to say. When I first moved to Los Angeles, there was a small subset of teachers and trainers in LA that specialized in accent reduction. And you may hear that phrase all around the world because there can be a stigma around having certain accents or dialects that you may perceive people judging you about, right? Uh, some Northerners may judge some Southerners here in the United States over their hick accent. Some Southerners may judge some Northerners over their snooty accent. Who knows? We may find people judging foreigners, people that come here from other countries, for their accents, judging them as either being inadequate or unintelligent or clumsy. Who knows? These are all bad things, right? I don't believe that you should reduce an accent or hide an accent. I think you should add other accents to your portfolio of ways of speaking. I speak in a particular way because I've lived in various places around the country. I've picked up the nuances of those places. I've also picked up the really hardcore examples of those places. I grew up in Cleveland, where we park our car in the driveway and we go down and we get the plain dealer at the car wash. You know, that's one place I've lived. I've lived in Baltimore near Hon, you know. I've lived in the Northeast. I've lived out here in the West. I've lived a lot of places. My normal way of speaking is somewhat accentless. There are times when people say, "Where are you from? You don't seem to have an accent." Um, you know, there are part of the joy of my work is finding other accents that I can do. I was booked as the voice of a series of New York Times bestsellers where the protagonist was a 29-year-old police detective, Buffalo, New York native, trained at Harvard, Irish American in terms of their heritage, and a female. That's the protagonist of this book, and I got booked on it. I actually called Penguin Random House and I said, "Do you have the right person? Do you really want me to do this?" "Yeah, no, we liked what you did with her voice." Um, the people around her, she had a very straightforward, non-accented voice. That's what came out of me. But the cops around her, they had that Great Lakes accent that's so prevalent in Buffalo and Rochester, and there were Canadian moments. I love assembling that group of accents. Um, and I urge you to do the same thing. I do not want you to mask your accent. I want you to use your accent. When it's time for somebody who needs a British accent, let them know that's what you do. I wouldn't hide that at all. I would add the general American accent. I would add other accents. I'm sure as a British person, you probably know how to do a fairly decent Glaswegian accent, Scottish accent from Glasgow, and probably both a northern and a uh, Dublin, Belfast, Irish accent. Probably Wales. You'd be able to do a Welsh accent. So all of these accents become a portfolio from which you can draw when you're doing these things. And I want you to do that. I don't want you to mask anything. And certainly don't do it when you're doing your normal everyday speech with clients. We have developed over the years the notion that British people can do pretty much anything. They can do all kind. They British actors, Australian actors come to the United States. They take jobs that would have gone to American actors because they can do an American accent. They get jobs, not take jobs. That's not the right way to describe that. But it happens, and they do so because they study it. They don't mask their accent when they're doing interviews or when they're talking with casting or they're talking with production. They're themselves. Don't mask it. That's my advice to you. Ken Gallego, I hope or maybe is it Gallego? I'm going to go with Gallego. Is there a way to save these videos? I'm new to this industry and I'm more of a hands-on learner. And how do I know if I have a good voice for voiceover? I'm going to say, without even hearing your voice is fine. The days of, oh, you have to have an announcer voice, you have to have a deep, resonant voice, you have to have a sexy, hottie voice, long gone. Listen to the examples just by listening to television. Go watch an ad-supported television network for an hour. You can watch the content if you want to, record it. Fast forward through the content and listen to the commercials. Listen to the promos. Listen to the per inquiry spots. Those are not crazy outlier exemplar voices. They're normal, everyday, relatable voices. My student base, my client base that I teach voiceover to, every type of voice you could possibly imagine. Honest to God. Yesterday I was talking with my lovely client, Sean McCallan, who's now a VO Heroes Pro lifetime member, just as of yesterday. I said, dude, you're a nerd. Look up nerd, synonyms for nerd on Google, and start to include some of those words in your description when you're talking about what kind of voice you have. And own that, embrace that, love that, because those are the voices that stick out like a sore thumb. And those are the voices that people are considering. They want a quirky voice or a picky voice or a snooty voice or a hick voice. Who knows? But you have a voice for voiceover. Ways to save the videos. I think because this was posted on video 4, I think you're talking about the lessons. They will be up for the next week, and that's how you can see them. I would consume them in the next week. Let's go to the comments. Let's see if anything's going on. Did you once earn your living by oh, Bobby Rich? Bobby Rich. Are you the Bobby Rich that I knew when I worked at the American Comedy Network? Let me know in the comments, Bobby. Did you once earn your living by laughing? I did. I did. I was once a lead laugher in studio audiences in New York, and I also had a character that I did for the American Comedy Network called The Laugher. You know, radio DJs, whether they were talk show hosts or they were music DJs, would take calls from listeners. And the laugher would always call up and be in the middle of a laugh when the phone was answered. Describing this is not any way, shape, or form going to do this justice, but the laugher would laugh the DJ's name or laugh about a current event in history. Yeah. Yeah. NB? I don't know what NB is. No biggie? I don't know. But yes, I did once earn my living by laughing. Okay. Thank you for bringing that. You know what? Coming out of the woodwork, people from the early part of my career, I love that. I love when people that I haven't spoken to in years are like, "Are you the same David Lawrence who used to work at KC 101 in New Haven, or Q 107 in DC, or WNCI in Columbus? Are you that guy?" Yeah. All right. We're coming to the final few questions that I had. I thought this would be an hour. It's been an hour and a half, but I'm gonna keep up with it until we get what we want. Beth Bex, Trith Freeman, Trith Freeman. I hope. I'm sorry, I don't have the pronouncers on this. How would you advise traveling with VO equipment, setting myself up for mobile VO success? So the microphone that I use, the AT2020 USB Plus, it is awesome. It's an outlier. It's a unicorn, and it's so inexpensive that I bought a second one, and it's in my what I call my go bag. So I have a computer case that I take with me when I travel, and in that go bag, that computer case, I've recreated pretty much everything I need that is currently on my desk, like a hub and a mouse and a keyboard, a wireless keyboard, uh, hard drives, and my microphone. So that all I really have to do when I'm going to go someplace is shut my computer down, unplug it from the hub that's on my desk, and slip it alone into my go bag. I don't have to crawl around under the desk unplugging things. And, I even have a power plug, a separate power plug in the go bag already. So all I have to do is put my computer in the one slot and I'm done. I'm off to the races. This microphone travels really well. And the desktop stand that we use, it's one of those classic screw in cast iron base ones. It makes your bag a little heavier, but you can travel with those as well. There are tons of ways to record while on the road. I would not record actual work on the road if it's part of a larger project. Like I wouldn't record a chapter or two of an audiobook while I was traveling. But auditioning, absolutely. And if you're in a hotel room, here's a tip. Over in the closet of the hotel room, there's going to be an extra comforter, right? Set your stuff up on the desk, pull the comforter, go get the comforter, pull it up over you and all your gear, and you'll have a nice quiet space in your hotel room to do your audition recording. Or get into your car in the parking garage or away from traffic in a parking lot. Cars are very quiet spaces. The capsules, the interiors of cars are designed to prevent too much road noise from leaking in, cars next to you, traffic, any other noise that might be. So that's a good place to do, especially if the car isn't, you don't want to turn the car on. You want it to be quiet. But travel, and there are people who travel around in trailers, in motorhomes, and they've created spaces in their motorhomes that are also quiet. Same way that you'd make a space in your house quiet. So that's a couple of the ways that I would advise that. Will James, it's hard for me to stop sounding like an announcer, adding words not in the script, and adding not words not in the script. Seeking coaching, would you help me? I'd be happy to. Breaking the habit of sounding like an announcer boils down to one thing, and that is being able to let go of that confidence that I talked about earlier, that repetitive confidence, that moment of, well, this is what I've been paid for all these years, to sound like an announcer, sound like I'm on the radio. Being able to just be yourself, to consider that you have other options, other shades with your voice that you will also be rewarded for. You know, I spent 38 years in radio, and every one of those years, certainly the first few, I spent with a slightly different voice than I use normally, until the final probably 8 years or so, where I finally just learned to talk like me, with all the shades of me that matter, instead of that go-to pukey back of the throat announcer voice that I was paid for very handsomely for the first 20, 30 years of my life as a radio person. Trying to emulate the other people that I heard on the radio. I was like, that's how you're successful, is if you sound like you're on the radio. And then I realized, no, the really highly paid people are the ones that sound like themselves. And it's a matter of building those ongoing successes where you don't sound like an announcer, where you start to sound comfortable as yourself. And think about when you sit at the dinner table with your spouse or your kids or friends, do you talk like you're on the radio? No, you don't. You talk quieter. You don't have headphones on, so you're not affected by hearing that. Adding words not in the script, that's just being attentive. You may see those words in the script and you may add them, but just stop that. Let's do a Bob Newhart moment and say, really? Stop that. Note it and go back and do a pickup if that's what you do. If you find yourself adding words to the script, it's because that's how you've said that phrase. That's how you've heard that phrase in the past. And so it's just a matter of reading what's on the page. And you always do want to read what's on the page, unless it's absolutely brain dead simple obvious that a word was dropped out of a sentence. It's happened. But yes, I'd love to coach you. And again, tomorrow morning, we're going to be opening registration for VO Heroes. If you want to do that, that'd be great. I love working with people who have experience just as much as I love working with people who are just getting started. And I love putting them together in the same workout, in the same room, because the people that are just getting started are also listening to the training and the work that the people who have experience are doing. And they go, oh, it's an ongoing thing. Excuse me. The people who have experience are also listening to the people just getting started and can see when that aha moment occurs, when that light bulb goes on and they make a slight adjustment and it gets even better. And sometimes they kind of take from that. Oh, that's kind of cool. Trent says, just finished lesson 5. I can't begin to thank you for all the time, honest effort, and genuine care you have put into these lessons. Thank you, Trent. I very much appreciate that. Thank you. Stanisha Lewis says, my biggest challenge is getting started. I don't know where to start. The moment you step over that vestibule, that door jamb from one space, the space of I haven't started yet, into the space of, oh, I've started. I'm off to the races. That's a big moment. I get it. It can be filled with trepidation and hesitancy and fear. Big fear. big fear, mostly the fear of failure. And as we talked about earlier, I'd like to absolve you of having to have that fear. How about like know that you're going to fail, look forward to the fact that you're going to fail, and that you're going to gain something from that failure. We always think we're going to lose something, and we do. We lose a moment in time, but in the long run, is it that much? But we gain some really great stuff. We gain knowledge. We gain experience. And those things are so valuable. We always tend to forget in our zeal to learn things that are new and what to do and what works is to learn also the things that we can let go of. That we thought at one point in time, well, that's going to work, I'm sure. I mean, I hear these people doing this stuff all the time. This is how they're doing it, I'm sure. I can tell. And then you find out, no, that's not how that works. This is how that works. Okay. Well, I can let go of that. I will let go of that. That didn't work. I failed. And wear it proudly. Because you now know something that you didn't know before that is going to help you move forward. That's why I call it fail forward. Getting started is making the simple decision that I'm not going to wait, and I'm not going to consider myself not worthy, not deserving, not ready to do this work. Every single person that is successful at voiceover at one point in time didn't know jack about voiceover or acting, but they learned. They started. They may have been, like I was when I was a kid, really inspired by the people that were professionals, that were making records, that were on television, that were in films. I was really inspired by them, and I knew I wanted to do this. And I don't remember the time when I said, "Yeah, I'm going to do this." I think it might have been in middle school when they first put up the audition notices for the high school play. That may have been it. It may have been even earlier. In fact, I know it was earlier. It was when I was watching a movie called Gijo with Jackie Gleason. He had no lines. He played a deaf mute, and I didn't know why I was crying or why I was laughing. And why was the same guy that was on my television on Sunday nights on CBS? How come he was in this movie? Well, how did that work? So I was curious, you know? It's like the Ted Lasso scene, you know? I was curious. Be curious. There are times when you just find it overwhelming. You have to do this. You want to do this. I personally have designed VO Heroes Pro to be exactly that solution. From the very first lesson of the very first class, taking you from step 0 to step hero, becoming a 0 to hero professional voiceover talent. I know how hard that first getting started moment can be. And we ease you into it, but we also draw you into it. And we want to do that. So that's what I think. Let me go over here to the comments and see what we got here. Bobby Rich. Oh, he's talking about the laugher again. That's great. Oh, doing an editorial? Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It was just a lot of fun. It really was. You know, when I look back on my career and I think about what I did in the very beginning, how little I knew, how I thought I knew everything. I thought I'd never die. And then what I've gained over the years in terms of experience and in terms of that whole doing what works and doing less of what doesn't, doing more of what works and less of what doesn't. And the changes that have been happening because of the target moving. You know, when I first started in voiceover in the late 70s, I started in radio in the mid 70s and then started doing voiceover work once I'd gotten on the air. The target keeps moving. The metrics for success keep moving 2 ways. One, the industry changes, the world changes. Everything about how we do things changes. The process changes. The gear that we use changes. The processes, the cool hip things that people do change. And also, my rule set has changed as my journey has progressed from beginner to intermediate to professional to veteran. The rules change. Stanisha is wondering how to get started. And at some point, she's going to go, I hope I can get my Audacity set up properly or my mic set up properly. And then if I could just figure out how to address the mic properly, that would be great. So you have this series of goals that you have. And in the beginning, that's the kind of goal that she'll have or that you might have. And then you want to do well in class. You want to do well in your training. You want to, satisfy the people that are giving you feedback. I hear this all the time in workouts, and I kind of discourage that. It's like, I just want to kind of guide you and give you adjustments, but don't perform for me. Perform for you. Perform for your own satisfaction. And then as you move further on, it's like, oh, I hope I can get an audition. Can I just get one audition? If I get an audition, that will confirm that I am a professional. Well, if you go on ACX, which is the Audiobook Creation Exchange, where you can audition for audiobooks, you don't even have to be invited. You can just go pick one and audition. So I can get you over that hump real quick. That little starting point, very easy. But then the rules change. Now you'd like somebody to respond to you positively when you audition. At least give you the feedback that what you're doing works. Hey, I really liked what you did. I went with somebody else, but I really liked what you did. Keep going. And then you're hoping that somebody books you. You're hoping for an outcome that ends in a paid position. And that rule set is very different from that rule set of, I hope I can set my mic up properly. It's also very different from the rule set that you might find yourself in even further along. Like, I want to do projects that really matter to the causes and the organizations that I really believe in. Maybe you're very strongly in one political camp or another, and you want to do books that promote that. Maybe you really feel strongly about a particular charity or a particular movement, and you want to help them. In addition to make money, to make your living doing this sort of thing. Whatever those things are, it's going to change over time, but everybody starts at the beginning. Even if you're starting over, like one of the first questions that we got. And I would love to help you. If you decide that this is something you want to do and you like my style and you like our coaches, our team of coaches that you may have seen during the week answering some of the questions, go back and watch the lessons, especially the Q&A parts, because they're great. I love them all. I would love to have you as a VO Heroes Pro. And tomorrow morning, as we record this or as we're doing this live, tomorrow morning, Sunday morning, 10 o'clock, we're going to be opening up registration for VO Heroes Pro with some very special early action, early mover, early decision maker bonuses that you have to act pretty quickly for to get, but they're worth lots of money and lots of saved heartache and experience, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. Just watch your email. You'll get something on it tomorrow. If you haven't signed up for the email, go to voheroes.com/go, watch the lessons, sign up for our list. I really appreciate it. I don't see any other comments. I thank you so much. If you have something that pops up for you, tag me in a comment under the recording of this. Whatever you decide to do, please be like Stanisha, like the others that have asked questions about getting started and doing things. Make the decision. The two questions that I have for you are, if you're not going to do this now, if not now, then when? 2025, 2030? When are you going to start? When are you going to actually take action and do this? And if you're at all doubtful about whether you're capable of doing it, if not you, then who? You're here for a reason. You're watching this for a reason. And I guarantee you that you have what you need and can acquire anything else that is part of your journey. I thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Caroline says, once again, David, you're incredibly generous. Thank you. That's very kind of you to say. I appreciate it. I thank you for spending your time with me. I know you got plenty of things to do on a beautiful Saturday morning, afternoon, no matter where you are. This will be available for replay once we're done. And I certainly hope that you make a decision and move forward with whatever it is that you want to do. All right. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.